stunning reversal. The Obama administration now admits that it timed the secret release of $400 million in foreign funds to Iran to the release of Americans being held captive in that hostile nation. Yet senior U.S. officials still do not concede what many have already concluded, that the exchange of money for hostages meets the very definition of ransom. Chief Washington correspondent James Rosen joins us with the very latest from the State Department. Good evening, James.
Shannon, good evening. It was rough sledding for State Department spokesman John Kirby today. At one point he bristled when a reporter used the Latin term quid pro quo, which means this for that, to describe this transaction that the Obama administration is now fleshing out in greater detail. Prodded by a new report in the Wall Street Journal, the State Department admitted that the secret payment of $400 million that the U.S. made to Iran in hard foreign currency back in January, contrary to the Obama administration's previous denials, was directly linked to the release of 5 American hostages being held by the Islamic regime, that the payment was withheld until the prisoners were on their way home, even as officials continued to deny that the transaction amounted to ransom.
When you're inside that 24-hour period, and you already now have concerns about the end game in terms of getting your Americans out, it would have been foolish, imprudent, irresponsible for us not to try to maintain maximum leverage. If you're asking me was there a connection in that regard at the end game, I'm not going to deny that.
The $400 million payment marked the first installment in a total payout of $1.7 billion, interest included, that the U.S. agreed to make because Washington feared that Iran, pressing a long-running dispute over the cash in international courts, would win a much larger amount. Previously, however, administration officials insisted the cash payment and the release of the U.S. hostages proceeded along entirely separate tracks of diplomacy.
There was no linkage between this settlement and the freeing of these Americans.
Administration officials from the president on down have noted that the White House disclosed the reaching of the financial settlement with Iran at the time.
It wasn't a secret. We were completely open with everybody about it.
Yet today the State Department admitted that its 11th hour decision to withhold the cash until the Americans were freed had indeed been withheld from the public.
I certainly would agree that this particular fact is not something that we've talked about in the past.
Congressional Republicans have maintained since the story broke that if the payment wasn't an actual instance of ransom, it looked to the world like one, and the new details only hardened that view.
It was ransom. We now know it was ransom, and on top of that, it put more American lives at risk. And we've emboldened Iran. We've encouraged them, frankly, to take more hostages and put more American lives at risk of being taken hostage.
When I asked John Kirby if there was anything in this bombshell Wall Street Journal story that he sought to dispute on factual grounds, he wouldn't point to anything. Chairman Royce said the House Foreign Affairs Committee will be holding hearings on this subject. Shannon?
All right, James Rosen live at the State Department tonight. James, thank you very much for that.